7:30 on a Monday evening, and you thought it not robbery to be out here to learn a little bit about voter education and voter registration in this virtual world that we live in. Without further ado, we're going to ask Pastor Rebecca West to open us.
Okay, I want to thank you, Sister Deborah Baton Jones, for the opportunity to share tonight. And just want to welcome everybody for coming on. This is a crucial area in our political life as well as our community. It's always good to be educated about things that you may not understand or know. And we know that tonight's forum will give us that information. And so once we got that information and understand the importance of us following through with it, I think we will be better citizens. So again, welcome everyone, and I'm looking forward to the information we're going to receive tonight.
Thank you so very much. You did a great job. You did a great job. It's always wonderful when you see individuals that are social media hesitant and they come in and slay it. So thank you, Pastor West, for coming in and taking us into the next level. We would be remiss if we did not open in prayer. And we did have someone here who was going to render prayer. And I don't know if Keith Shannon is in backstage. Smiley, is Keith Shannon here? If he's not, we understand and we love him and we will move forward and we will ask Pastor West to come back.
Okay, sure, no problem. Father, we pray that you would give us your wisdom and guidance, everything that we are given information for. We pray, God, that we would internalize it. God, that you would give us clarity of thought and give us direction. You know what we are in need of during these times. So I thank you even for the opportunity to gain the education that we need in this forum. We give you praise and we give you thanks. Thank you for every participant on tonight, that they will give us accurate information based on how you have given it to them with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen, amen, and amen. Thank you so very much. This event would be nothing without the collaboration of all of the wonderful individuals that you see here on the screen. We're going to start and we're going to start and ask if, do I see Elizabeth Nash here? We want to make sure that we put the disclaimer and our statement out. If not, Smiley, I'm going to get you to load it and then we'll read it. Do you see Elizabeth Nash in the waiting room? Okay, we will read it. Smiley, can you bring up? Actually, I'll just read it. What this is an opportunity for us to say the safety that is hugely important with all the things that we do. Let me tell you, two computers. During this virtual event, I hope that you are all healthy and well in your own places and spaces. However, as we are in any location in which we meet, whether it be in our own homes, our virtual meetings and events, or physically in some other venue, we must ensure that our guests are ready. We must always be assured that there are 2 exits available to us in case of the need for any emergency evacuation. Please identify 2 exits in your current location. Also, during the COVID-19 pandemic, even if you are vaccinated, please remember to wear your mask, wash your hands, and stand 6 feet apart from others. Please continue to be safe and always ready. This was a message from Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated for all of our esteemed guests. Next, we're going to have Dominique Jones, and she's going to speak a little bit about Voter Education 365. Mm-hmm.
Just read it?
Yes.
Can they hear me?
When you unmute.
Pardon? Hello. Turn your volume down.
We're experiencing technical difficulties.
Okay, so the mission statement for Voter Education 365 is we will strive to provide voters with the tools to overcome all barriers and hurdles that have historically prohibited comprehensive voter participation. We will work to eliminate fragmented dissemination and information related to voting policies, practices, and procedures. We will empower individuals with the knowledge and capability to combat voter suppression. We will fervently publicize the fact that all politics are local. We will spearhead efforts to educate the masses in order to help them develop a clear understanding that every aspect of their lives are impacted by voting. We will encourage active participation by all in all local, regional, and national elections. We will cultivate ambassadors of voting charged with mobilizing their communities to engage in all political processes and motivate to encourage their neighbors to pay it forward and inspire others to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominique. Thank you, Dominique. As we move forward, we want to now introduce some of our most important players that we have here. We would be nothing without a wonderful collaboration. We're going to start with my chapter president. My chapter president is Sarah Fatima Robinson, and we're going to ask her to welcome the group. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Sora Deborah. Good evening, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Fatima Robinson, and I am the proud president of Suffolk County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is a not-for-profit organization whose purpose is to provide an extensive array of public service initiatives in local communities worldwide through its 5-point programmatic thrust: educational development, economic development, physical and mental health, political awareness and involvement, and international awareness and involvement. We are an organization of over 250,000 college-educated women making a global impact through community service. We have been committed to service through social action since our founding in 1913. Tonight, collaboratively, we will make an impact through virtual voter registration, education, and mobilization. I guarantee you, you will leave this forum equipped to understand how to register to vote virtually and help others to do the same. Remember, your vote is your voice. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very impactful message. We will then move on to our next chapter president, and we'll call Yolanda Scott.
Good evening, everyone. Again, as mentioned, my name is Yolanda Scott, and I am the proud president of the Staten Island Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. It is my pleasure to bring greetings to you on behalf of the 55 members of the little chapter with the big heart on the rock of Staten Island, as we partner with our sister New York Metro chapter presidents, as well as chapters with Suffolk County Alumni, Bronx Alumni, and New York Alumni Chapter, along with Perfect Faith Church and Voter Education 365. As mentioned by my sister president, you are in for a treat to learn how to mobilize and get further information in regards to voting virtually. So please take notes, sit back, and adhere to everything that's being brought to you tonight. Again, it's my pleasure to be with you this evening. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. That was amazing. We have another sister president, one of their sister presidents, that is not here today because of a prior engagement. But we have to mention her name in her chapter. And she is the one and the only Althea Kitchen. And her chapter is the Bronx Alumni Chapter. She's an amazing person, and we wish her well wherever her trip and she's works like so much and so has so many different irons in the fire that we have no idea where in this world she is, but we know that she's doing something amazing. So thank you so very much. We now would like to see if we have our New York Alumni Chapter president. Is she in the back? We have so many moving pieces that we want to make sure that once a person does arrive, if they're not logged in yet, that we will stop immediately and give them the opportunity to then present and be properly recognized. And then we're moving now on to our next segment. Now, Smiley, you can let me know whether or not you have any of the graphics, but one thing doesn't stop any of this from going on. We're going to move forward and say we're going to ask Soror Shelley Riley. Is Soror Shelley Riley backstage? We're going to ask her to give a few stats about Suffolk County. We think it's important to make sure that the viewing audience understands that each one of our counties has a specific and a different task, a different makeup, and the statistics are quite interesting. This will help you in mobilizing your community. It doesn't matter which party you're voting for. We want to make sure that we understand that this forum is to educate you on the processes, not the practices of what and how you vote. We want you to vote. We want you to be educated to vote. We want you to learn all that you can learn and put it in place for your communities. We know that each person that is watching is not just a member of one organization, but many organizations. So share this information. And know also, we're taping it on StreamYard so that it can be shown on YouTube and Facebook as you see, but we'll be able to show this again. So it's not something that's a one-off. And this, again, like I said, is the first of many that we're doing collaboratively. And if your organization would like to collaborate with us, at the end of the show, we'll be able to give you that information. So we will then move on and say, with some of the statistics for Suffolk County, it seems as though with this wonderful new technology that it's hard for people to log on. But we understand your time is important, so we're going to move on. In Suffolk County, New York, 49.3% of the people voted democratically in the last presidential election. 49.3% voted as a Republican Party. The remaining 1.4% voted independently. In the last presidential election, Suffolk County remained narrowly Republican. Suffolk County voted Republican in the last two presidential elections after voting Democratic in the past four. The best places in the liberal conservative index, we have Suffolk County leaning very liberally. New York, Newark, Jersey City, metro area are strongly liberal. New York is moderately liberal. These are just some of the vote words that we wanted to display and to say to you when we speak about the statistics and how over the 4-year period of any presidential election, the paradigm shift changes often. So we want to make sure that you do not rest on your laurels and think that because it was one way in one era, that it's going to be the same way in another era. We want you to be educated, and we want you to make sure that you go out and you exercise your right to vote. We're going to move to Staten Island and let Staten Island give some of their stats. Sarah Michelle?
Yes. Good evening, all. Welcome tonight, and we really appreciate you being here, and we hope that you can take something away from this tonight. Richmond County is somewhat conservative. 42% of the people voted Democrat in the last presidential election, and 56.9% voted for the Republican Party, and the remaining 1.1% voted independent. In the last presidential election, Richmond County remained strongly Republican, 56.9% to 42%. Now, Staten Island is leaning conservative. So I just want to give you that little bit of information and to remind you that the elections are coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah Michelle. We're going to move on to Nassau County. Since that's a part of our Long Island, we want to make sure that we give you a few stats as they pertain to Nassau County. Nassau County, Come on, baby. Nassau County, over the last 4 years in politics and voting, the climate is somewhat liberal. Nassau County, New York, 54.1% of the people voted Democrat in the last presidential election. 44.6% voted for a Republican Party. with the remaining 1.3% voting independent. In the last presidential election, Nassau remained moderately Democrat with a slight 54.1% over the 44.6%. And Nassau County has voted Democratic in every presidential election since 2000. Nassau County is moderately liberal. These stats are important for you to understand the community in which you live. Now we're going to move to the Bronx. Sir Teresa.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Teresa Landlatta, and I am the Social Action Chair for the Bronx, New York chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. So according to bestplaces.net, Bronx County is a heavily Democratic borough. 83% of people voted Democratic in the last presidential election, 15.9% voted Republican, and 0.8% voted independent. One issue that remains the same in the Bronx is that Bronxites feel that their vote does not count, and there is low voter turnout, which is a constant battle. I urge you to consider that if you're not casting your vote, your voice is not being heard. So I just want to remind you that our New York primary begins on June 28th. Registration deadline is June 3rd, which has passed. Your absentee ballot deadline was today, June 13th. And early voting will begin in the Bronx on June 18th and end on June 26th. Thank you so much for attending this event.
Thank you, Sir Landlatta. We're going to move on to Manhattan. New York County is very liberal. In New York County, Manhattan County, 86.4% of the people voted Democratically. In the last presidential election, 12.2% voted for the Republican Party, with the remaining 1.4% voting independent. In the last presidential election, New York Manhattan County remained overwhelmingly Democrat, 86.4% to 12.2%. New York County is very liberal, and it is, they went on to write, not only is it very liberal, but it's strongly liberal. That's what they wrote. So it's interesting to see how people then describe what we're bringing forth to you. As we continue down the list of what information we want to make sure we give you, we do have spiritual covering when we look in biblically about voting. Proverbs 29:2 says, when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. So now more than ever, the people are responsible for the character of their Congress. If that body be ignorant, reckless, and corrupt, it is because the people tolerate ignorance, recklessness, and corruption. If it be intelligent, brave, and pure, it is because the people demand these high qualities to represent them in the national legislature. If the next centennial does not find us a great nation, it will be because those who represent the enterprise, the culture, and the morality of the nation do not aid in controlling the political forces. Now, one might think that we're talking current, but this was written back in 1881 by James A. Garfield, U.S. President and Minister of the Gospel. So as we make comments, and we want to make sure that we clarify and we make sure that you understand where these are coming from. These statements from 1881, we're in 2022. So we have to make sure that we understand that our four founding fathers knew that we were going to be experiencing ups and downs in everything we do as it pertains to elections. So this isn't new. The only thing that's new is that people are not getting out and voting. And so we, during this pandemic, thought it a great idea to bring to you how to register virtually. So with that being said, we're going to move on and give you a little more information about how important it is and what is important. We were talking about 5 reasons why people should then vote. Smiley, I'm on 16, slide number 16. Those are all the wonderful graphics that you missed. So let's go to 17 now. Voting matters now more than ever. Can we look at this? Elections have consequences. You have the power to decide the quality of your life and what you want for your future generations. Voting is a chance to stand up for issues you care about, like public transportation and raising minimum wage or funding local schools. This is your life. Take the time to help decide what's best. You pay taxes, it's your money. But do you know how that money is being used? Most people don't. Voting is your chance to choose how your tax dollars are spent, such as funding for healthcare and social services. Non-voting is basically giving up your right and your choice. Elections are decided by the people who go out and vote. Take some time to learn about the measures and the candidates. If you don't vote, someone else will make the decision for you. Your power is your vote. Voting is an opportunity for change. Do you want to make a positive impact? Voting gives you that chance. Support the candidates and ballot measures that can help your community, your state, and even the nation for the greater good. Make your voice heard in these elections. Again, we're not telling you who to vote for. We just want you to be a smart shopper. What was it Cy Sims said, an educated consumer is his best customer? Well, an educated voter is ours. Next slide, please. Next. There is a new voting law. As of January 20th, 16-year-olds can now pre-register to vote. The law lets those aged 16 and 17 fill out voter registration applications online or in person at the Board of Elections office or at the Department of Motor Vehicles. They will then be automatically registered to vote when they turn 18 without needing a separate trip to the Board of Elections. Does everyone have the voter registration forms I sent you? Now, I write that on there because I am more than willing to send you forms anywhere you are. So I'm asking, do you need forms? We'll send them to you. Next slide. We have a young lady who has been volunteering with Voter Education 365 with her entire family. And we wanted to just hear from her. So Smiley, can you bring our wonderful guest on screen so she can read and tell from her youth perspective why it's important to vote?
My name is Liana Arrington. I'm 15 years old. I believe it's important for young people to vote because of the immense impact that it can have on you and your own community. You are able to personally make changes that you see fit, and that can help, future generations of your community and help out everybody else, including.
Out of the mouths of babes, we want to make sure that you know that she is on the Junior Honor Society. She is so active in her community and thinks it not robbery. And I'll use that term often because she takes her time and she called and she sought out the opportunity to volunteer. That's an amazing young person that seeks out what it is that is important to them and makes sure that they're getting the experience and the tutelage and doing it as a family. We would never do anything with them without having them with their family. Thank you so very much for coming out. As we move to the next slide, the next slide really speaks to those of you who are already registered. As a person who's worked behind the chair at the voting poll, when you walk in, you see a variety of us sitting back there taking your name and information. We find that individuals have not checked their voter registration status prior to getting to the election poll. That causes a lot of problems because it causes people to be upset and angry with people who have absolutely nothing to do with why their names may not be in the book. So this is an opportunity for each of you that are viewing to write down www.elections.ny.gov. And we can put that in our chats on both YouTube and Facebook so that people will be able to then make it clickable. When you go there, you'll be able to then, next slide, you'll be able to then go on and see whether your registration is active or if it's inactive. And it'll give you ample time to make that correction prior to getting to the polls. Another notice that we want to make sure that this viewing audience knows about is a notice about your right to register to vote for former felons. Now, we know that in our families, friends, and neighbors, that we have people that are either rightly or wrongly accused and have gone on to pay and be incarcerated. So what I would like for you guys to know is a new law passed that restores the right to vote for a person convicted of a felony upon release. Now in New York State, it's simple. Bright line rule. If you are not incarcerated, you can register to vote. Again, if you are not incarcerated, you can register to vote. This law is not even 1 full year old. So we want you to share this information with everyone that you speak to. People in all walks of life have been incarcerated and think that they have lost their right to vote. That is totally not the case. So again, it's called Bright Line Rule. If you are not incarcerated, you can register to vote. We know that prior to this enactment of this law, a convicted felon was not legally allowed to register to vote until they were discharged from parole or any post-release supervision that they were under. That is old. That is no longer. Please tell your communities, especially those of you who are out doing voter registration drives, tell your community that they can vote. Let's be the change. Let's make sure that paradigm shift happens with us. Information is so very needed to share because we have so much bad and disinformation being distributed that we want to make sure that good information is permeating just as easily as wrong information does. Next slide. Next slide. When registering to vote, we want to make sure that, again, we show you this, elections.ny.gov. That's not only an opportunity for you to check your registration, but it's also an opportunity for you to then check your status, make sure that you know who your congressperson, legislator, what your district is. Oftentimes you've gone into the voting location and they've said, what's your election district? And some people come in looking like Bambi and they're looking like, I don't know what it is. So please take a moment before you go out and vote and make sure that you know your election district, your legislative district, your congressional district, and your senatorial district. Next slide. Next. Voting process infographics. We wanted to make sure that we drilled this in, that we drilled this home. Registration lists are always changing. While there are different processes in every state, so for those of you who are watching from a different state, we have information about the other state. Today was specifically about New York. To protect against the inaccurate changes or removals. There have been people that we know that their household was split. Half of the people were removed from the roster, the other half, and it wasn't anything personal. It was just a computer glitch. So check and know what your status is. Knowledge that you need to have the knowledge because you need to make sure that you've given them the proper permissions. Make sure you're ready to vote. Voters can fix their problems with their voter registration status beforehand. Deadlines vary with each state. As you heard a little earlier, today is the deadline for anyone to send and to request an absentee ballot. Start as soon as possible. Next slide. Voting is it's private. Nobody needs to know what or who you're voting for. It's none of their business. It's personal information and the state keeps it separate. No one is able to then go back and see how you voted. So it's a misnomer when people say that as they go into the polls that other people are watching. So even if someone tried to find out how you voted, they wouldn't be able to. Next slide. Now we're getting to the how do you register to vote online? This is a collaboration with the Department of Motor Vehicles that New York has had now for approximately 3 years. It enables a person who is already registered to vote, already registered to drive, or you have a non-driver's license, or if you have a permit, for you to go directly to the DMV site, and we have it here so you will see what it looks like. It's dmv.ny.gov. Next slide. You would then click register to vote and update your voter registration information. People have been known to change their address, change their party, and to make sure that their information is accurate. There are some people that I have found that after being on this earth for 30 or 40 years found that their birth certificate was wrong, and they had to go in and change their birth date. So this information is important for you to be able to log in. Now, one may say, well, why is it so easy? It's easy because the DMV is already a state entity, and your signature has already been documented and verified. That's where the safety part comes in. It's already been verified through the Department of Motor Vehicles, which enables the Board of Election, after you go to the DMV website, they then send over electronically the information, and that's how you become registered to vote. In the last year and a half, it's taken approximately 5 to 7 days for that to take place, but I have known it to happen overnight, that a person has registered and they've been able to find and check their registration in 24 hours. That is not the norm, but I have seen it happen. In order to register, you're going to need your New York State DMV issued driver's license, permit, or non-driver ID number. It must be your most recent issued document, and you will need the ID number on the document, the zip code currently on the record with the DMV, and the last 4 of your social. Next slide. This is how that sheet will then look. So this is your path to personalized online services. And so this is something that is so very easy to do. And each of you, especially those who are tech savvy, and make sure those of you who are tech savvy, go to someone's home that maybe they're elderly, maybe they just moved here, and you need to help them in making sure that they can register. This is an easy way that they don't even have to leave the home. Next. This is really important. There is a new absentee voting law that just was passed and took effect January 1st. The new absentee ballot procedure is due to a recent change. Voters are no longer permitted to cast a ballot on a voting machine if they have already been issued an absentee ballot for that election. Voters who have already been issued an absentee ballot can still vote in person by affidavit ballot. This is because of checks and balances. The affidavit ballot will be kept separate from the election until the election is completed. Election officials will verify whether the voter's absentee ballot has been received. If the voter's absentee ballot has been received, the affidavit ballot will not be counted. Conversely, if it has been received, it will be counted. If a voter requests a second absentee ballot, any previously issued absentee ballot that is returned by the voter will be set aside and unopened. Bottom line, this is a lot of legal jargon. Bottom line is this. We have put in place, or New York has put in place, early voting, which will mitigate all of these problems. If a person, we can go to the next slide because I have the early voting schedule. Here are some current links, and we'll go to the next slide. These are just informational links that I think are hugely important for you then to have, for you to do your own supplemental research after you finish with our presentation today. Next slide, and the next slide. Here in Suffolk County, early voting starts on June the 18th, as it does all over New York. But you'll see here that the times are different in each county. The locations and how the locations are then put forth are very different. In Suffolk County, if a person happens to be vacationing in the Hamptons and they live in the town of Babylon, they are able to go to any of these listed sites to vote for early voting. In Suffolk County, that is how this works. So when it shows all of these different locations from Wyandanch to Southold, from Blue Point and Bohemia to Dix Hills and Kings Park, from Riverhead to Southampton to Amityville and to Farmingville, anybody that's registered to vote in Suffolk County can vote at any of these locations. Next slide. This we also offer in Spanish so that you'll have the opportunity to share this with your neighbors. Next slide. Nassau County has early voting locations as well. You see their hours are quite different than those of Suffolk County. Why are we pointing this out to you? We're pointing this out to you so that you do not get information from one location and think that it's applicable in another location. What if you go online to any of these sites that we're going to put in the chat, we will then make sure that you have this information. Now, as we look at some of the comments, people are afraid and do not know enough about the integrity of the mail-in ballots. How do you ensure them that this process is safe? And this is a good question. The mail-in ballot is safe. The mail-in ballot, and I had a slide there talking about mail-in ballots have gone back as far as the election with Abraham Lincoln. They are secure. The mail and the way the process is such that as a person's application is then sent to them, they then fill out the form. It's a double envelope process. You put the ballot in one envelope and that envelope in the outer envelope, and you mail it back. I suggest that people bring it back. If you're not going to be here on the day of the election and you still want to do a paper ballot, bring it to your Board of Election and hand deliver it, especially if you feel that there is some safety mechanism that's not in place. You have the opportunity to bring it to your Board of Election. Now, why else would you want to think about early elections? Early elections are 9 days of voting prior to the election. You don't have to rely anymore only on an absentee or election day. We are pushing people to go and vote early. Why? Because the lines are shorter. Your peace of mind is there, and it fits in your schedule. When we look here at the New York votes, New York City is totally different than Long Island. New York City, you have to go to a specific site. You can't go to any site to vote if you're in the 5 boroughs of New York City. Your place has been identified. And nycvotes.org is what you click to find out your location. We had the forms. It's about 5 forms of over 150 sites. So we couldn't even put it on the screen where it would be legible. But if you go to www.newyorkcityvotes.org, you'll be able to see the early voting times, the times you see here. And again, if you please take note, these times are different than Nassau and different than Suffolk. The only thing that's the same are the dates. But you have 9 days. Now, those 9 days include 2 weekends. So by properly planning, you're able to then go out and to vote. Now, because of so many different, the pandemic has really been instrumental in making this election probably one of the craziest that we've seen in many, many years. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that there are going to be 2 primaries. One primary is going to be held on June the 28th. That one will determine the gubernatorial as well as the assembly district races. We have word that there's going to be a second. The second one is scheduled for August the 23rd. August the 23rd, that election will be for Congress and for your senatorial seats. So June, gubernatorial, as well as assembly and judges. August, congressional, and senatorial. Now, why is that important? That means that the numbers that we spoke about earlier, you know how when people have to do things more than one time, that they get disenchanted. We want you to encourage your constituents. We want you to encourage people to go out and vote. We want them to be able to show numbers that have never been seen before. The comments and the questions lend me to believe that people really do care. They just did not have the tools to figure out why it was so important. So please understand that the first step is registering. The second step is voting. I'm sorry, the first step is education. Second step is registration. And the third step is actually mobilizing your groups and your peers to go out and to vote. You will see the fruits of your labor if you are very, very methodical in making sure that that's the case. Now, change doesn't happen overnight, but if you put in the work, you will see the fruits of your labor and you'll see the change. So I hope I answered your question. Voting by paper is very, very safe. Voting early is safe, and voting on election day. You now have 3 options. So people do not have to just rely on one. We found that people were saying that why is it only one day? It's Tuesday. Everyone has to work. How are we going to make it? Well, absentee balloting became larger. So it was no excuse absentee balloting. That's what we're living in now. Prior to that, you had to have a reason to vote by paper. Now we've added a third indice, a third opportunity. That opportunity is for you to vote early. 9 days. On the Monday, there is rest. So we start on the 18th and you go through the 26th, which is a Sunday. Take a moment to figure out where you're going to vote. But most importantly, read up about who's running. You may vote for this person for this party, that person for that party. We're not telling you how to vote. We just want you to be educated. We want you to have fewer questions so that you can walk around effortlessly. Can we go to the next slide? We've gotten a little information. Oftentimes we want to share what we've learned from other people. There was a Long Island, you can leave it up. Long Island young women, this is a note that I wanted to share. They had an inaugural class, which was partially funded by a grant from the National Women's Political Caucus Foundation. They graduated and certified 6 exceptional young women from across Long Island last year. Graduates from the inaugural class were from a diverse group of women from schools, including all the ones you see up on the screen. If you know a young woman who is bright, inquisitive, passionate, and interested in learning more about the system of government and political process, please nominate them. Completed application packages should be emailed to the address there, and we'll put that in the link in the chat as well. The deadline is July the 5th, so you have a couple of weeks. The accepted program class will be announced by July 30th. This is the type of information that we want to share with you. We will make sure that this information is posted on all the networks we can. Check at Voter Education 365. And if you have any questions whatsoever, you can email us, and we'll make sure that this information is shared with all of our collaborators as well. Next slide. At this time, we want to say thank you to all of our partners. But before we thank our partners that have partnered with us for this year, we want to see if there are any other questions that are coming from Facebook, YouTube, and or from our StreamYard chat. And they can come from some of those who are backstage as well. As we move and wait for any of those questions to be populated in my StreamYard link here, we want to say thank you. There is a comment that they didn't know that convicted felons can now vote. This is the information that we're trying to share with you. We want to make sure that as new information comes forth, that you're able to then benefit from it. As new information comes forth. Yes, my daughter. They hear comments that people are afraid and do not know the integrity of mail, and that's one that we answered. And that one was from Sharon Hennett. Yes, The integrity is there. There are people working night and day, overtime hours, to ensure that your vote is counted, your vote is safe, and your vote is private. This is something that I can attest to personally. So make sure that as you follow all the steps that you need to follow, one, to make sure that you are registered, two, to check your registration and make sure that you're prepared. With our last presidential election, the lines were through neighborhoods and people had to wait for hours. So be prepared. Have a chair. Bring water. If you have an absentee ballot that you would like to bring to the polling place, each polling place allows you to walk in and give it. But other people don't know that that's what you're doing. So just be a little transparent. Say, hi there, I'm just dropping off my ballot. Because, like when you were in 6th grade, people see somebody walking in front of the line, they think that you're not supposed to be doing that. We also have another question, and the comment was about the felons. That is probably the single most important piece of legislation that is not shared. I don't know how many people who work with people who are now transitioning from being incarcerated to what we'll call normal life. But this is information that you are now armed with. We want as many organizations as possible to partner with us so that we can share this wealth of information. It's important that we're speaking the same information. The other thing, and I actually do have a voter registration form with me. I have gone to many voter registration drives. And the forms that you have are so outdated that it's a mystery to me. So in the bottom corner, it says the year that these forms are good. In the bottom corner. If you have forms that are outdated, please contact me so we can send you new forms. These forms right now should only have the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, the Conservative Party, and the Working Families Party. All other parties are not eligible at this time for them to have a party and a primary ballot. So please, throw away the old stuff. If you need new stuff, email votereducation365@gmail.com. We'll help you out. Please, I went to a location that was a state location that I shall not name, and their forms were dated 2015. Please. Any other questions? Smiley, I would like for you to bring all of our presenters back on screen so we can do a wonderful, timely goodbye and comments. I would like to give, since we are finished a little early, and what do I mean by finished a little early? I had so many more slides, but people can only absorb but so much information. So I wasn't going to bring all of those. I kind of deleted about 30 slides. So if anyone here, I would like to really allow, or not even the word allow is as though I lord over someone. I would really love for Michelle to then speak on behalf of Staten Island, since you and Teresa were like the first two to jump on to say, let's do this. Let's get this information out. So we'll go to Michelle and then we'll go to Teresa.
Yes, you covered a lot. But I just want to say about Staten Island that we just need to get out and make sure that we vote. Our vote is our voice, and we always say that because it is. There are many times that we look and we say that legislators aren't doing anything for us, but what we have to do, we are their constituents. We must hold their feet to the fire, and we must hold them accountable for the things that go on in our communities. So it's very important that you go out and vote. You've heard the dates. You can go on votenyc.gov as well to make sure that you're out there, that you go and vote in absentee ballots. You've heard that once you request an absentee ballot, you cannot go to a polling site and vote. So if you ask for an absentee ballot, you can take that absentee ballot to the polling site, but you cannot vote. You can take that and you can put it in the box that they have. So it's very important that we get out and we vote for these legislators. And as you heard, June 28th is our election day. And we want to make sure that we go out and we vote. And on that day, we will be voting for the governor, the lieutenant governor, state assembly, judges, and party positions. That is in New York City. So I just wanted to give you that little bit of information. Then we will have a second, unfortunately, we will have a second primary, and that will happen on August 23rd. So just look out. This year we have 2 primaries. It's important that you read information, that you go on the website to be updated on the information as well, because here in New York, they're talking about also changing the assembly districts. But right now, as far as we know, the early voting will be June 18th through the 26th, as well as election day on June 28th. But just keep up on that. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Teresa, you want to speak to us from the Bronx?
So Michelle said everything that I would have said. So I hope that people took heed and they were listening to the dates once again. What I will say is that since we do know that Bronxites, we have low voter turnout here. If you have not voted in quite some time, please check the status of whether or not you are still registered. If you have moved, please check your status. And you can check that on votenyc.gov to see whether or not you are still on the rolls. And if you are not, then use this opportunity to register virtually to make sure that you'll be able to vote. Your vote is your voice. I cannot stress that enough, but I can't tell you how many Bronxites I've spoken to when we were out trying to register people to vote that said, oh, that doesn't matter. My vote doesn't matter. And I can't tell you enough that, yes, it really does. So please, when you go to the polls this time, take someone with you. Take someone who said, my vote doesn't matter, and make sure that they're in there and you read the ballot with them and you help them out. So each one, teach one, and take one. And that's what I have for you tonight. Thank you all for joining.
Before we go to the next question, we see a question has come up from Saba. Saba M. Chinguzi asks, is there a statewide election or primary on June 23rd? And what are the positions? The primary is going to be on June 28th. Originally, they had it slated for June 21st, and then they changed it. There's been so many changes. So it's going to be on June 28th. The second primary, and well, to back up and answer the second part, I know I said it and Michelle has said it, but we cannot say it enough. The gubernatorial, judgeships, assembly, and party positions are what's going to be on the ballot on June 28th, starting with early voting on June the 18th, Saturday, varied hours depending upon which county you live in, and it will run through Sunday, June 26th, with a day of rest on the 27th for election day to then be on the 28th. Voting on election day, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. If you are online at 8:59 and the polls are closing at 9 p.m., you are still eligible to vote. Anyone online by 9 o'clock is eligible, whether the line is 1 or 100. Anyone on that line can vote. As far as the second election, that is the second primary, that is slated as of today for August the 23rd. August the 23rd will be for your congressional as well as your senatorial seats. Early voting for August will start on August the 13th and run through August the 20, let me see, I had it in my head, run through the 21st, giving us the 22nd to rest and the 23rd for there to be the regular election day. I think that you need to also be mindful that November 8th is coming right after that. So that is the general election. So all of that which you're voting, all the people you're voting for the primary, then they all go to run against the other party in November. I had someone come to me one day and say that the person that they wanted to vote for was not on the ballot in November. And I said, XYZ, did you go to vote during the primary? They said, no, I never vote in the primary. I said, so that whoever you ever wanted to vote for will never make it to the general election. Because if you don't vote for them in the primary, they will not be on the ballot in November. So not only is it important for you to then vote, it's important for you to understand voting and to understand that the people that you want in power, the people that you want to lord over your communities, if you don't vote for them, who will?
Deborah, I just wanted to make a clarification on the absentee ballot. I just wanted to say that you can still vote in person, but you'll be using an affidavit ballot.
Yes.
At the early voting or the election day. So I just wanted everyone to know that.
Yes. And I'm glad that you reiterated that. I had said that earlier, but I think that in my marketing background, you have to say something 7 times for people to actually hear it. So we can't say it enough. The affidavit ballot is like, in my mind, like the last resort. You have the opportunity to go early voting, unless you're traveling and you'll be out of town. And if you're traveling, you should have requested an absentee ballot. So we have June and we have August. So the deadlines are different for each election. So we'll be back to you before August again to let you know the dates, the times, and locations for the August election, because we really think it's important that not only are you hearing it now, but we need you to then act upon it. It's great to know things, but if you don't act upon it and share the information, then it's for naught. I would be remiss if I didn't allow my daughter to come. See, I can say allow to her, but for anyone else, no. Dominique, is there anything else that you would like everyone to see? You don't have to be on your computer. You can come over here. Is there anything else you want them to say, to know about, and what they should do?
Oh, if you have any questions or anything, you can contact us and email us at votereducation365@gmail.com. Thank you.
We have some of the most powerful women in our counties that are representing us here as well. We have our presidents. We would love to give some of the final words to our presidents. She's my secretary for Voter Education 365. I will say that one announcement: on Friday, we received information that we are officially 501c3. So we are incorporated and a charitable organization in New York. So we are excited about that and bring it to you as breaking news. Breaking news. So Fatima Robinson.
Well, good evening. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I just would like to end and just mimic what our social action chairs did state. Go out to vote. Our voice is important. Vote, vote, vote. You have to know to vote, so vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have Sora Yolanda Scott? I guess I should say, Smiley, who do we have left in the back room? I think we've given everyone the chance. And just like we started exactly on time, we're going to end exactly on time. It's 8:29 as we speak. Please look forward to our next forum. Please also email us. This information will be available on all of our sites. And I don't think that there was any more information that we could have imparted that would have been able to saturate the group like this did. I thank each of you that came out to help us. And I thank all of our collaborators. Thank you very much. Educated voter. Yes, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, New York State Assembly, maybe the judges in political party positions. 2 primaries, yes, and that's wonderful news. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure everybody's comments were read aloud, and thank you for all of your support and this is just the beginning. Smiley, thank you for all of your tech. I know you're not going to come on screen, but thank you for all of your tech savvy. And for all of you watching, thank you so very much for taking time on this Monday evening to learn a little bit more about voting. Hopefully what we've imparted to you was helpful and that you'll look to us in the future for additional information. And it's 8:30.